Good afternoon. Today is Monday, September the 9th. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Here.
Present.
Here.
Present.
All right, thank you. First up, I'll bring the Clerk of Courts, and then I'll bring up Economic Development. All right, this is ordinance number 811-2024 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance on behalf of the Clerk of the Cleveland Municipal Court to enter into a contract without competitive bidding with Iron Mountain Incorporated, DBA Iron Mountain Information Management, LLC, for the lease of space for the storage of records and the purchase of services related to the storage of records for a period of 1 year, with 4 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Finance on behalf of the Clerk of Court. And it says that it wants to amend to include the fund number listed in the admin report. So do you guys have the fund number that we need to amend?
It is 6320 professional services.
6320, professional services.
Oh, you know what? 6360.
6360.
My apologies to the council president. It's 6360.
Got it.
You know what?
Okay.
All right. It's
and this-
other contractual, so hopefully I didn't say the wrong one.
no problem. And this is for the sum of $65,000. Mr. Hartley?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This request is from the Clerk of Courts. It's for the approval for approval of release for space for storage records and related services. And Holly Murphy is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Ms. Murphy?
Good afternoon. Just wanted to give you guys a real president and council members. Currently, we do have storage and have had storage and services from Iron Mountain for well over 22 years. And as the record keeper of the court, we're required to store stuff in order to be able to retrieve records that are needed on a daily basis or weekly basis for the court. And we have to also follow the rules of superintendents that for the record retention policy that they have in order to keep the files for whatever period they deem. And some of those files are kept permanently, some are kept up to 50 years, and some are kept up to 25. So that's why we were asking for a direct award request to Iron Mountain to continue that service and storage that we currently have.
And you guys typically come in front of us every year for this, right? This is-
Actually, it's been for a while it was every year. Then it went to 3 years, and then we've been trying to do a 5 year so we can lock in a better rate and keep the pricing reasonable.
Thank you. And Iron Mountain is an actual mountain where you actually physically store these records. That's like high security and everything else.
That is
right?
correct.
Okay. Any questions regarding ordinance number 811-2024? All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 811-2024 stands approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got anything else?
We have 2 more pieces,
Hold on
Mr.
for a
Chairman.
second. Which two are they?
825 and 832.
825, 832. Okay.
Jim and Jim.
We did amend it. Did we amend that? Didn't we amend this, Director, or law person? We did amend to add the 65. Did that need to be in the They put it in the summary.
We don't need to. If it didn't happen, it's fine.
Is it, we good?
The actual, to the chair, the actual amount is not in the legislation, but this certification page does say 65.
So since it's in the certification page, we should be good. Yeah, okay? All right, thank you. All right, next up is Finance, ordinance number 825-2024 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request. And emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to employ 1 or more professional consultants, computer software developers, or vendors to acquire licenses or develop and implement 1 or more risk management software systems and provide services to install, design, train, implement, test, maintain, support, and other related services for a term of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Finance. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request is designed to help the Division of Risk Management to help mitigate future losses and help organize and investigate current cases currently being managed by the division. Commissioner Ed Romero is here to answer any questions you may have.
Before we go, I see that you guys have an amendment in here for strike and other funds in Section 3. Did you guys submit that amendment? In Section 3, it's a sticky note that says the cost of the contract or contracts authorized shall be paid from Fund Number SF006 and other funds approved by the Director of Finance, RQS 0117 RL 2024-83.
Right, that's correct.
So it has on here that we were looking at strike other funds.
Through the chair, and we wanted the other funds in there. I'm not sure who struck that part.
Okay, so one of the questions that we've always had is why do you have other funds in there? Because what that entails is that you can potentially, as finance director, use other funds as opposed to strictly the fund that we allocate. And we've been trying to close that loophole.
Right, through the chair, the council person, to the chair. We kind of have that in any case. Somehow we might get a grant. There's different sometimes funding coming along. We could always come back if we have to and add those in if we strike that out. But we kind of add that in just from some flexibility. If other funding becomes other more restrictive funding that we can use for that, we could free up less restrictive funding. That's kind of why we always, a lot of times, we'll have that in the legislation that we present.
Okay, so let me ask this a different way. If we give you the authorization to use this funding and you determine to use general fund or anything, you can use any fund that you want to if we authorize this, right?
Through the chair, yeah, that's correct.
So part of the concern and consternation that I think many of the folks have across on this part of the table is, should we close that loophole? Because there's no way of us knowing that if you just took it, that you guys wanted to just do it without council's authority, you'll be able to do it. So I'm going to request that we strike and other funds in Section 3, and that we do bring it back because we just want to, even though we may want to be efficient, we also want to make sure that we are looking over these pieces of legislation, okay?
Absolutely.
So, Attorney, do you have in Section 3, strike and other funds?
Other funds approved by the Director of Finance. So you're sticking with fund number 11 SF006, that's open fund?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just got something with the commissioner. Because this is through the chair to the council members, because this is going to be a citywide system, we do have to have the ability to charge it back to utilities and airports. So I think that's why that was an additional reason in this specific case. Because if we have a citywide risk system, we don't just pay out of the general fund. We want to charge back water, CPP, airports. So we could add those funds in, the 4 major enterprises. Or once we implement this, we could come back and then we'll add it at that point.
So you're requesting that at least have in there the 4 major enterprises?
Through the chair, yeah, because we don't want to charge the general fund. We want to actually allocate it back to the enterprises where applicable on those.
Okay, I cannot make an amendment. Is there anybody that would be willing to proffer an amendment for what Commissioner Gentile just said? And basically,
Mr. Chair, yeah.
go ahead, please.
Mr. Chair, I would just note, given the complexities of the charge, I would
Just leave it
suggest that we
alone.
just leave it as is.
Just leave it as is. Leave it as is. And do the thing. All right, just leave it as is. Just retract that. All right, Councilman Casey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, I don't have an executive summary. I don't know if anybody else does, but there's no cost in the amount in this legislation. So can you tell me what the cost is?
Through the chair, to the councilman, $650,000.
All right, then I'll offer an amendment, Mr. Chairman. In Section 3, Line 2, after "and other funds approved not to exceed $650,000."
So Councilman Casey has proffered an amendment.
I'll second.
Councilman Polinsky has seconded. Do we have any discussion? Any discussion? All right, we have an amendment that's been proffered and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Attorney, do you have the correct spelling of what Councilman Casey has proffered?
Yes, the funds shall not exceed $650,000.
Okay, thank you. Anything else regarding this ordinance? I have Councilman Polinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to whoever can answer from the administration, define risk management for me.
To the council chair, to Councilman Polanczyk, risk management is the mitigation of any fiscal risk to the city as well as to the health and wellness of any city employee.
Okay, so that being said, are we ever going to get a briefing with regard to the ransomware attack that the city underwent?
To the chair, to the councilman, that particular is being handled out of IT.
Okay, well, okay.
We are going to be bringing them in front of us to have a conversation.
Okay, I mean, yeah, because
But I will be honest with you, Councilman, I did meet with IT. A lot of information is highly sensitive.
Okay.
But I do plan on trying to bring them in front of us.
Okay, I'd appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, because I think a lot of us, a lot of city employees still have a great deal of apprehension as to what, who and what gained access with regard to city documentation. So again, I'll look forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any other questions regarding ordinance number 825-2024? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 825-2024 as amended stands approved. As amended stands approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is ordinance number 832-2024 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to enter into an amendment to lease agreement number 2017 through 023 with Mid-City LTD for the lease of office and meeting space for the Community Police Commission located at 3631 Perkins Avenue for 1 additional year. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request is from the Community Police Commission. It's to amend an existing lease agreement for an additional year. And Executive Director Jason Goodrick and Susan DeGennaro from the Division of Real Estate are here to answer questions.
Sure. Please proceed.
Thank you, Director. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, this legislation authorizes the extension of the lease for Cleveland Police Commission at its current space located at 3631 Perkins Avenue, Unit 4C, with Mid-City Limited for 1 additional year beginning October 24th, 2024. The commission has been leasing space in the building since October 2017. In 2021, the lease was amended to change the unit rented from Unit 3A2 to Unit 4C and to increase the rent accordingly for the larger space, which is the rent is currently $1,207 per month. It's $4.56 per square foot annually. The total annual cost is $14,487, and the legislation would authorize a renewal or an extension for 1 year on the same terms and conditions, so that rent will not increase. The legislation also authorizes the leasing of additional space, 2,200 square feet of space in Unit 3CE to be used for additional meeting room space. The rent for the additional meeting room space is $2,000 per month, plus utilities and trash removal. So the total rent for the extension, including the existing Unit 4C and the new Unit 3CE, will be $3,207.25 per month, or $38,487 annually. The new total square footage is now of lease space is now 5,377 square feet.
Thank you. It's on Perkins Avenue. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to all at the table. The rental that we have paid up to this point, is that a line item in their budget, the rent?
To the chair of the councilperson, yes, it's in their annual budget.
It's in their annual budget. So my question is this: has there been any thought of finding space within a city building? You know, I find as I'm sitting at this table, we're paying rent here, we're paying rent there. We've talked about over the years about trying to figure out how we can bring more of these agencies, departments, divisions, et cetera, within city buildings. So is there any effort, or there's been any discussion?
To the chair of the councilman, they were working on a space study with all
Okay.
city facilities and then what we're renting. So they are looking at how can better utilize city-owned properties
Yes.
and get out of some of these rentals. So they are looking at that, the administration is looking at that actively. So there should be some movement on that in the near future.
Okay, so, you know, we've heard that for some time now, Mr. Gentile. So do you have any indication when that study or report will be done?
Through the chair of the councilperson, no, but I'll get something back to you.
Okay.
To check.
I would request that through the chair, because again, I mean, we are paying a substantial amount of money every year for rental property. And it just, in the day, we always try to find space within city buildings to locate city operations or agencies that were connected to the city. So again, I'll leave it until we get that information so requested. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, Mr. Titron, do you have that request for information?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and Ms. DeGenero, when we were here last year, that was the, just to piggyback off Councilman Polensek, that was the topic of conversation,
Yeah.
was to move out of there and to move into City Hall. Are they is the Community Police Commission, Mr. Chairman, to Ms. DeGenero, currently renting the additional 2,000 square feet?
Through the chair to Councilman Casey, they're not currently renting that space. It will be added as of this new lease year.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, to Ms. DeGenero, why the need for all the additional space?
Through the chair, I'll defer to Executive Director Goodrick to answer that question. I understand it was just their current space is just not sufficient for the scale of meetings that they have.
Through the chair to the councilperson, that is correct. We have been having community meetings in our office space, which is a floor plan designed for cubicles of employees, and there is a meeting room in the back, but it cannot accommodate the audience that sometimes we draw to the community meetings. So we are trying to have an additional space that is just for community meetings, that is isolated for that purpose, that does not interfere with the working area and doesn't violate any city code with attendance, because we have at times had standing room only, and I'm not certain that it's the best environment we want to have for our public meetings.
Mr. Chairman, to the chief, does this increase their allocated dollars that they were budgeted for, because we're increasing the amount of rent in their budget?
To the chair of the councilperson, no, this will fit under their other expenses, so they'll reallocate. They're only going to get statutory, to the councilperson, they're only going to get statutorily what's required in their budget. So there's going to be a reallocation to rent, and there'll be some other things below the line that'll be moved into that.
All right, Mr. Chairman, to the chief or our manager, do you remember what it was that we budgeted for them, for the Community Police Commission for the year?
To the chair of the council.
Because it's by ordinance, correct? Their
through the
allocation, their minimum amount is by ordinance. They're not going above and beyond anything that we allocated for them
No, through the chair.
in the yearly budget?
No, through the chair of the council person. Statutorily, that's written into the charter now, the percentages. So we will maintain those percentages. So as something goes up below the line, we will reduce something else below the line
Okay.
to keep it at the same level of funding.
And 5,000 square feet is a lot. That's a lot of space. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions regarding ordinance number 832-2024? All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 832-2024 stands approved. Please sign on.
Thank you.
All right, economic development, please bring your guest up. This is ordinance number 857-2024, as amended by Councilmember McCormick, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a grant agreement with the Refugee Response DBA Resource Cleveland or designee to provide economic development assistance to partially finance the building of the Roundstone Pavilion at the Ohio City Farm. And is economic development here, or do we just have the guest?
Chair, this is a council piece.
This is a council piece? Okay, Councilman, well, let's let our guest go first. Tell us your name and please proceed. And let me read the amendment first. The amendment says there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in section 2 at the end, insert RQS 9501 RL 2024-93, date 8/22/24 by Stephanie Melnick, Chief Corporate Counsel. And please announce yourself and please proceed.
Thank you very much. My name is Patrick Kearns. I'm the Executive Director of Resource Cleveland, formerly the Refugee Response. And we are talking about a project based on the Ohio City Farm, which is the Roundstone Pavilion. We've been operating the Ohio City Farm as a social enterprise for the last 14 years. But to this day, we've never had an indoor space. We provide 10 positions on the farm. 7 of them have to be furloughed every winter. This project will allow us to increase to 14 full-time positions all the way through the year, allow us to expand our annual income in the first 2 years by $250,000 annually, and allow for at least 12 different vendors and small businesses to utilize the space. In addition, this will increase fresh food access in the city. We will be able to process EBT and all other forms of payment on site with our partners at CMHA. And it will allow for education projects for adults and children in the commercial kitchen going forward. We look to, I would call this an extremely shovel-ready project, as after this, I'm going up to the 5th floor to collect our final permits. We've signed the contract with Independence Excavating. The project is ready to go.
All right. Councilman McCormick, did you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I also see our Assistant Director here if she wants to. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a really exciting project that we've been working on a while. I will say that one of my first jobs back to Cleveland, I sat on the farm every Saturday for 5 hours working the EBT machine. So this was one of my very first jobs in city council, or when I got back to Cleveland. So again, Chair, as you noted, and as the director noted, this is a program that works with newcomers to Cleveland from all over the world. Another critically important component of this program, Mr. Chairman, is this backs up to 550 units of my seniors in CMHA housing, who will have much enhanced access to the farm and to the programs with the addition of this facility. So not only is it within the mission of the program, Chairman, but my Riverview Tower residents also who look right over the farm from their apartment units will also enhance access for those residents as well to the programs offered here at the farm. So really excited about this, Chair. Again, touching on access of fresh food to our seniors that live next door, job opportunities for newcomers, and Resource Cleveland has been an incredible partner in making sure that when folks are relocated to Cleveland, they have the language, the job access programs that they need to thrive in this city. So I appreciate my colleagues' consideration of this ordinance today of what I believe is an investment in a very worthy organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Question.
Councilwoman Santana?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations, Councilman McCormick. I am very well aware of this garden. Many of my residents also come out because I have a lot of refugees in my area, come out to the garden. My question is, the $150,000 that goes to partially finance the building, how much is the overall project? Through the chair.
To the chair, sure thing. It is a $1.6 million project altogether.
Got it, okay. And so 150,000, okay. That would take them to the finish line, the 150,000, or are we still raising funds?
This would take us to the finish line. There are still some small operating costs for signage and staffing later, but that is after the construction process.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, well, congratulations to, and could I be added on this? I know it's not in my ward, but you know my passion for
Can we please add
refugees.
on Councilwoman Santana to ordinance number 857-2024?
Thank you, Patrick, for all your hard work.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding ordinance number 857-2024? Yes.
Thank you. If I could just ask the director to pass along to our staff more information on the building itself and the center so we can distribute those materials. Thank you.
I do have paperwork with me. To the chair, I do have paperwork with me.
Great.
If I can leave that
Yes.
with the staff? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 857-2024 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
All right. Human Resources.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. All right, this is ordinance number 823-2024 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Human Resources to employ one or more consultants or one or more firms of consultants to provide professional services for pre-employment background screening and criminal checks for the Department of Human Resources for a one-year period with 2 one-year options to renew exercisable by the Director of Human Resources. The fund number is in admin report, but it's not in the legislation. So do we need to amend the legislation to include the fund number? Attorney?
I do have the one number here, Mr. Chair. The copy I have.
So it's what it is, and I think here's the mix-up, just to let everybody know. The administrative report has the fund number, right? But the legislation doesn't have the fund number. What reason does the legislation not have the fund number? Does it matter if the legislation has a fund number or not?
The legislation would have the one number.
Mr. Cole, is the fund number in the legislation? Because I don't see it.
To the chair,
Okay, all right, please move forward. Please tell us about this and do the thing.
thank you, Chairman and Committee. So back in 2023, we actually put forth legislation 1155-2023 to gain approval to go with our current background vendor. And that was for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year renewals. The first year actually does expire October 31st of this year. However, we would like to go out for an RFP or look for other direct service providers, state term providers, to possibly enter into contract with a different background vendor. We've had mixed results, just to be blatantly honest, with our current background vendor. So we want to look elsewhere at this time.
So, if you don't mind, who was our former background vendor?
So the incumbent vendor is Universal Background, formerly known as Open Online. We, like I said, we do have a current contract with the ability to extend, but based on recent experience, I think it'd be best for us to take a look at some other companies.
So you're going to probably end who you had the former contract with, and you're going to get a new group to go out for an RFP for?
To the chairman, correct. The current contract expires 10/31. We may exercise a shorter extension just to keep a background check in place. However, our goal is to look for a background vendor who does better work for us.
Okay. All right. Okay. So basically, you just want to switch vendors who do the background checks for in City Hall, and that's the police, regular employees, everybody, right?
To the chairman, yes, but police do an extensive additional background check as well.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, does this firm have any minority participants that are a part of it? Do we know what percentages of minorities that are a part of this? Or do they have any subcontractors that are minorities, or do we know that?
To the chairman, for the current contract, I'm not sure with Universal. Certainly, that's something we'll look at for the companies that we look at to replace.
Okay, so one of the things that I want to make sure that we're clear about, and we'll make sure that we give this to the administration, is we really want to see really want to see those numbers whenever anybody comes for us. So we know that this is pretty much authorizing you to go out for bid, but when you do accept, we do want to make sure that we understand what the makeup of the company is, okay?
Absolutely. And to the chairman, we actually take a look at that with every vendor that we look at.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions regarding Councilwoman
Just on
Santana?
that point, Mr. Chair, I'm curious to know, even what if they're from Cleveland? Is there like a point system that you guys go through, making sure they're minority, making sure they're from the city? I'm not sure how that works.
To the councilwoman, I'm not aware of any point system, but I do know that we stress not only minority firms to get business, but as well as female-owned small business and in local, of course, Cleveland area. This I believe this firm is based out of Arizona.
Okay. All right. Any other questions regarding ordinance number 823-2024? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 823-2024 stands approved. Next is ordinance number 946-2024 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving in its entirety the fact finder's report, findings, and recommendations in the matter of the City of Cleveland and the Teamsters 507 Public Utilities Supervisors. Director, please give us the gist of what this is.
Thank you, Chairman Committee. So on September 3rd, 2024, we received fact finder Susan Fernandez's fact-finding report, which is in front of or was attached. This came out of contract negotiations held with Local 507. Previously, this group was represented by the USEA Local 10, I believe, and the Teamsters took over. We did reach impasse, went to fact-finding, and ultimately agreed to what is in the fact-finder's report. And the highlights of it essentially is this affects 96 supervisory employees with the Department of Public Utilities. And we feel it's a fair resolution. The primary sticking point was wages. So we ended up with, in the fact finder's report, as you can see, pretty standard for the set of contracts that encompass 2022 through 2025.
All right, thank you. Any questions regarding ordinance number 946-2024? All right, seeing no questions, ordinance number 946-2024 will be considered by the full body this evening. Please forward it to the full body this evening. Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Public Works. We're going to start off with Mr. Laird. Welcome back. Thanks for not leaving.
Thank you for keeping me.
My man. Ordinance number 633-2024, as amended by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into a license agreement with the vendor to install and maintain an automatic teller machine terminal located in room 122, vital statistics for the use and convenience of the general public for a period of 1 year with 1 year option to renew, exercisable by the Director of Public Works. Director.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This piece is just for us to be able to float an RFP and to solicit vendors to put an ATM in the license and assessment area. In the past, this ATM just kind of was there. It had always been there. We didn't know who was in charge of it. We found out there was no agreement for it. About 3 years ago, we put an agreement in place with KeyBank. Since then, in order to be able to keep going, we found out we needed legislative approval to be able to do that. So that's where we are today to be able to go out. Now, this morning we had a pretty robust conversation about how we do that. There was an amendment to this piece that we'd have to come back to this body to actually approve that, whoever that vendor would be. So we're good with that, and that's where we sit with it.
And I apologize, let me make sure I read the amendment. There is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. Number 1, in the title, lines 8 and 9, and in section 2, line 2, strike exercisable by the Director of Public Works in both places and insert exercisable by additional legislative authority. This was dated 9/9/2024 by Patricia McGinty Aston, Assistant Director of Law. Okay? Any other questions regarding ordinance? Councilman Mike Polensek, 633-2024.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wondered where my ATM machine went. That's, okay, on another subject here, okay? I'm hoping within this, embodied within this piece, as it pertains to prospective
What number is that again?
lessors, that there would be a requirement I would need, if I would make a motion if need be, that I want to make sure whoever gets the contract is compliant with the city's CRA requirements.
Absolutely. That is through the chair to the councilman. That was actually brought up by Councilman Harrison. So that's something we'll make sure it gets into the RFP.
Okay.
That will be preference for that.
Well, do we need, I'll make a motion to that effect.
Is it already, do we need to make a motion for that? Yeah, go ahead and make one.
I'll make a motion that the.
Yeah, because it got to come back, won't we?
Yeah, the recipient must comply with the city's CRA requirements.
All right, Councilman Polensek has proffered a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, Councilman McCormick, because we're not on discussion yet, but do we have a second to discuss this amendment? Do we have a second for Councilman Polensek's motion that anybody considered has a CRA agreement in the RFP? Councilman McCormick has seconded that motion. Now we will have discussion. Any discussion? Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I just, from a timing perspective, what I'm curious of is I understand that the city is trying to sign on or working with banks to sign on to those agreements. So like, timing of getting an ATM in vital statistics for people to utilize versus the timing of the CRA signing. If the CRA signing is going to take another year, will that hold? That's my only question here.
That's a good question.
Oh, until it's. And so, Chair, to the Director, is there currently an ATM serving residents? Okay. So
Yes, there is.
We're not going to
Chair.
have a lapse of access to.
So there'll still be access.
Yeah,
Okay,
there
thank you.
still should be access.
All right. Okay. So there's any other discussion on this that with the RFP, we would have anybody who is chosen, are they in compliance with the CRA agreement? Okay. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? All right. All in favor of the amendment as proffered, say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Therefore, that amendment will take place. Do you have the amendment, attorney? Okay. All right. So This is ordinance number 633-2024. We'll go back to any other questions anyone has about that amendment, about that piece of legislation. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 633-2024 as amended stands approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is ordinance number 718-2024 by Councilmembers Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more standard and requirement contracts for the purchase, lease, or lease with option to purchase of several on-road vehicles, apparatus, and off-road equipment, cabs, bodies, and necessary and accessories, equipment, and other aftermarket items necessary to equip the vehicles authorized for their intended purposes, including vehicle rehabilitation, training, and inspections as needed for the Department of Public Utilities. Assistant Director.
Thank you, Chair. This piece is a typical, or I won't say typical, but it's a piece that we do annually for capital purchases. We have two pieces. We do one for public, for the general fund, and we do another for public utilities. This piece is for public utilities to be able to purchase the heavy equipment and rolling stock that they need to be able to do operations. I have Commissioner Jeff Brown with me to answer any questions that you may have about this piece.
Thank you. Welcome, Commissioner. And just out of curiosity, all of the capital requests are on the computer?
This is, yeah.
Yep. So you have a list of all the capital requests on the computer. Please proceed, Mr. Brown.
To the chair, this is our yearly request for the Department of Public Utilities for their vehicle capital. These are all items that are replacement. There's no additions here, so each one of these items that come in will replace the already existing vehicle.
Thank you. Councilman Bishop, this was heard in Public Works. Do you have any follow-up?
Yes, Mr. President, we vetted this in municipal service this morning and fully support this piece of legislation.
Thank you. Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. Quickly to the Commissioner, do we know, I can tell by some of these that they're made in America, the F-150s and things like that. Do we have a grasp on which of these vehicles are made with American hands?
To the chair, to the councilman, I don't know all of them. I can tell you that the majority of vehicles on here are American-made.
Yeah.
There may be a few of the smaller units like the Bobcat and the ATV Gator that they're made by American companies, but maybe assembled and delivered from outside America.
Yeah, from all of our fleet, I'd be curious to see if we have a grasp on that. Just on what's made in America. Again, obviously the F-150s are made here and things like that, but I'm just curious, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, do you have the information that we requested at the table regarding the inventory of all the fleets for DPU?
Through the chair to the councilman, we sent that to Brooke.
Okay, so it was sent over?
It was sent over.
All right,
yes.
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions regarding ordinance number 718-2024? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 718-2024 stands approved. Please sign on.
Thank you.
All right, next one is ordinance number 821-2024 as amended by council members Conwell, Hairston, Bishop, and Griffin, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into an agreement with the Cleveland Cultural Gardens Federation to co-sponsor the 2024 One World Day. Director.
Thank you.
And let me read the amendment. The amendment says there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in section 2, at the end, insert RQS 7004 RL 2024-110. And it's dated 9/9/2024, signed by Patricia McGinty Aston. Director.
Thank you, Chair. This piece is for to be able to support the Cultural Gardens for their One World Day event that actually did already occur. This legislation is for us to be able to actually give them $10,000 to support that event.
Okay, so once we pass this was something that somebody was trying to track down a long time ago, and they made it clear, like, where's the $10,000? It has just now come to us. So just so that everybody knows, somebody asked about this about 6 months ago, and it just now came to council for approval. So just want to make sure that the public knows that, that we never had anything. We just now got this piece of legislation, okay? All right, thank you. Any other questions, Councilman Bishop?
Yes, Mr. President, we vetted this morning and fully recommend it for passage.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, Assistant Director, what all special events does Public Works sponsor? Do you have a list of all of them? Or why don't you just get it back to us through Joe Teichman?
So, and just to be clear to the chair, when you say sponsor, we're talking about financial funding, not in kind, but actual dollars. Okay.
Right, like you're giving $10,000 to the Cleveland Cultural Gardens to sponsor One World Day. It's my understanding that I think you got a couple of more events that you do this for, and I just want to understand what all of these events are. Can you get that to Mr. Teichman?
Okay, I can do that for you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions regarding ordinance number 821-2024 as amended? As amended. All right, seeing no other questions, 821-2024 as amended stands approved. Please sign on. Last but not least is ordinance number 834-2024 as amended by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance or Director of Public Works as appropriate on behalf of the Office of Sustainability to apply for and accept a grant from the United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service for the Strategic Investments in Equitable Tree Canopy Growth and Preservation Grant to enter into various written standard purchases and requirement contracts for urban forestry services to employ one or more professional consultants and authorizing the appropriate director to enter into one or more contracts with various agencies, entities, or individuals to implement the grant. And the amendment states as follows: there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in section 1, line 3, strike up to and insert not to exceed. And this was done 9/9/2024 by Patricia McGinty Aston, Assistant Director of Law. Please proceed. 834-2023. Yes, please proceed, Director.
Thank you, Chair. This piece, the Department of Sustainability, along with the Department of Public Works, is going out for a grant. And this grant is actually to help us right-size ourselves, to get ourselves baseline. As you know, urban forestry has a lot of work, a lot of things that it needs. And so this grant is going to help us get to that place of being able to right-size as far as getting to a survey on our inventory, things like that. So I have with me Director O'Keefe from Sustainability, also Jennifer Kipp, as I'm sure you all know her very well. And they'll be able to answer any questions you have about this specific grant.
Sure, please proceed.
Yeah, sure. Hi, through the chair. Good afternoon, council members. I'm excited to be here today with Department of Public Works and Urban Forestry Manager Jennifer Kipp. We've worked really hard on formulating a program for this $3.4 million to come to the city of Cleveland for the transformation of urban forestry as it stands today. As A.D. Laird mentioned, this is an opportunity for a transformation in getting urban forestry into a spot where we can address as a city the existing tree canopy and make it as healthy as possible, keep it, maintain it, and move on from there. I'm going to pass it over to Jennifer Kipp to talk a little bit more about what she would like to add to the summary before you ask questions.
Great. Thank you, Director and A.D. Laird. Good afternoon. So I would like to add about the $3.4 million. What we are looking for to accomplish with this money is first and foremost to complete a comprehensive tree and site inventory of all the city-owned trees in the public rights-of-way. So everything on the tree lawn between the curb and the sidewalk in the city. Based on my knowledge, we haven't had an inventory completed probably since the 90s. So we're looking forward to to this affording us to collect data, give us a snapshot, a database snapshot of what is the health of our forest and what are the maintenance needs overall, including stumps, which I know that's a hot topic for many of you. So we're going to start with the inventory, and from that data, we will be getting a management plan that's going to help us identify those key areas where we do need to, look at operations, staffing, capacity, et cetera. Should I go into the opportunity corridor?
I think so.
Okay. So once we have so also in year one, so that's kind of a year one approach, is getting the data first. We're also going to be looking at revitalizing the opportunity corridor, specifically the trees. So right now, we would just go out to RFP for some professional services to do some soil repair, because that soil is what we call post-construction. It's not a good environment for tree roots to grow in. It's compacted and full of a lot of just bad debris and things like that. So we'd be doing some root invigoration using a soil and air knife. Maybe I'm getting too technical. All right, I still have people. No one's sleeping yet. So that would be year one. Also getting some training for our foresters. We have 5 foresters on our staff, and we'll be putting them through the tree risk assessment training, which is offered by the International Society of Arboriculture. So that's year one overview, and then contractual services to help with our maintenance after that. Thank you.
And those contractual services, just to clarify, would be based on the urban forestry management plan, and we'd be taking into consideration things like the climate risk vulnerability assessment that we've already completed, and prioritizing different neighborhoods and where we work in different neighborhoods. All of this funding will benefit federally defined environmental justice neighborhoods. We have a map that I believe each of you should have now that outlines where those areas are. If you don't, we can pass that around. We also have, that is a requirement of this funding. And those contracts over the next 3 years, this is a 5-year grant, those contracts would be based on, and the prioritization would be based on the urban forestry management plan.
All right.
Thanks, Director. Sure.
Thank you. Councilman Bishop, this was heard in Public Works.
Yes, Mr. President, we vetted this morning and fully recommend it for passage.
Thank you. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the administration who can never answer. The $3.4 million, we are applying for that, correct?
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, and I would love to give a little bit of history about this, if I may.
Okay.
So in 2023, this was an Inflation Reduction Act application with the Cleveland Tree Coalition that the city of Cleveland joined. That application was not funded, unfortunately. However, the USDA Forest Service reached out, and we had conversations with them and worked with them and invited the city of Cleveland to, as a member of Cleveland Tree Coalition, to submit a revised application in partnership with 3 others. We do have 3 subawards on this grant to the Cleveland Tree Coalition itself, Cleveland Metro Parks, and Cuyahoga County. And so while we've been invited to apply for these funds, just to clarify.
So what I'm trying to understand, there's no guarantee we're going to get the 3.4. Is that what you're telling me?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's very, very likely we will get these according to the USDA Forestry Service.
So you're thinking the city of Cleveland, Mr. Chairman, to the director, we're going to get $3.4 million.
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, that is our understanding, and we've worked very closely with the U.S. Forestry Service on the application itself, and they've gone through the revisions with us and accepted this program.
Okay, so let me go into what some of my concerns are. Because you've indicated about, Jennifer indicated about bringing on an outside consultant to address and to look at the tree canopy in the city. How much do you anticipate would be spent on hiring a consultant?
Through the chair to the councilman, the average price for an inventory is between $9 and $12 per site or per tree. So that's roughly $1 million, because we're estimating we have 90,000 street trees and 30,000 vacant tree lawn spaces.
So you're going to spend, or telling us that you could spend approximately $1 million on just assessing the tree canopy.
Through the chair to the councilman, it would be the trees and the sites. So we would be collecting data, getting a snapshot in time of our condition of our forest and the available planting sites for reforesting.
Okay. So Jen, to the administration, here's my concern. we all know the situation we're dealing with. I'm dealing with, again, trees today since the August 6th storm. I've dealt with trees every day. I would hate to see a third of it go for a consultant to, again, allegedly address the tree canopy. What I've learned since the August 6th storm and a storm from last September was that we need to do more tree trimming, more line clearance, more removal of dead and diseased trees, and then planting, because in some neighborhoods have been devastated by the loss of old growth trees. But if you were to talk to most council people around this table, I could assure you they would tell you what trees need to be removed in their ward, because they're the ones getting the calls on them. And as you look at our overall condition, and I can tell you without any fear of contradiction, there was a time here, my colleagues won't believe this, but it was the truth. When I needed to get a tree trimmed, I would make a phone call or send in a note and it got trimmed. And if a tree needed to be removed, it was removed. And if I needed a tree planting because we had a tree farm, I got a tree planted. Now, people might not believe that, but that's how it worked in the day. That's how it worked. And so what I've said before, and I'm going to continue to say, with all the vacant land we have in the city of Cleveland, we should be looking at where we can establish a tree farm again, or tree farms, where we can start trees, where we can grow trees. To Mr. Chairman, to Jennifer, how many people do you have in your department today?
Through the chair to the councilman, we have 10 tree care professionals, 8 to 10, depending on vacations and retirements. We have 5 field operations foresters. They are the certified arborists who perform the tree assessments.
Yes.
And we have several vacancies. We have 4 vacancies.
How many people did you have at one time?
I just celebrated my 11-year anniversary with the city, and when I started, we had a staff of roughly 22.
There, you just addressed it. You just addressed it. And I would say to you, if you were to go back, you would find that you would have staffs of 30 and 40 people working in that division over the years, removing trees, trimming trees, et cetera, et cetera. So the point I'm trying to make, it's great to tell me how many trees I have in my neighborhood. It's great to tell me what the condition of them are, but most of the folks in my neighborhood call me when they got a dead tree on their tree lawn or got branches coming off the tree. I'm trying to figure out how we can collectively better address the problems that are there. The trimming, the removal, the replanting. That's what I need to hear from the administration. What I see here is we're caught up into consultants here today at City Hall. It's consultants, consultants, consultants in one department, one division after another, and what our residents want is the service. So I don't want to be redundant, but what I'm saying, if we didn't learn a lesson from what happened on how many trees came down in the city, Jennifer? When I talked to you, I think it was 2 days after the storm, you told me 150. What was the number that came down, Mr. Chairman, to Jennifer?
Through the chair to the councilman, I can get you those numbers after the
Is it over 150?
Is the question, were there over 150
Yes.
trees that fell?
Yes.
Again, I don't want to sit here and make guesses. I'd rather
Okay.
get you the data.
Okay, but you told me when I was on the phone with you, were dealing with 150 trees that you were aware of, okay? That's trees that were either down or severely damaged. That's not counting the number of limbs and major branches that came off these trees, where streets were shut down. I had whole streets shut down. And like today, I'm still trying to get trees, that elderly lady, the trees laying on her fence and on her house, and she's in a wheelchair, but the tree's on a vacant lot. Okay? But so what I'm saying, I'm going to stop here. All I'm saying, you know where I'm coming from. It's about the delivery of service. I don't need no one to tell me how many trees I got. I don't need no one to tell me that. I could drive down every street in my neighborhood and I can tell you how many trees I got. I need someone who's going to trim them, who's going to take the stumps out, who's going to plant the new trees, and not plant trees that lift everybody's sidewalks. I mean, I just think we got to get back down to Mr. Chairman, to some basic common sense approach to service again. If we spend $1 million of this on a consultant, shame on us. Shame on us. And I want to say this to the acting director. I hope you're hearing what I'm saying. I don't want to come back and say, well, you know, we blew all this money on a consultant to tell me how many trees we got. I don't need to hear that. I want to know what you're going to do to trim them and remove them and plant new trees to green up our neighborhoods. That's what I want to hear. So I'm going to leave it at that, Mr. Chairman, because things I took for granted in the day today are luxury, and I miss those days. Thank you.
Did you want to respond, Mr. Assistant Director? Because I want to make sure we get clarification on this if we could.
Before I did, I just want to ask the address, if you wanted, the address.
Okay, I can give it to you, but it's 14312 Darwin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. O'Keefe? did you wanna-
Yes, through the chair to the councilman. So the value of this tree inventory is a person who is a certified arborist, you can correct me on that, carefully evaluating every single tree in order so that we have that information to do exactly the things that you're requesting, which is to understand where the trimming crews need to go, where the removal trees need to go, instead of bopping around the city from tree to tree emergency. The idea is that we would have an information system that shows digitally the health of all of these trees, where they are, so that we can form a plan to actually address them in a more efficient manner and deliver that customer service that you're talking about. When we have the constraints that we have now, to take the time, it relies, and I absolutely appreciate the resident and council person information network that is incredibly valuable. That helps quite a bit, I imagine, right now in our system especially. But when we have a centralized database for different projects, for example, we know the tree health in a neighborhood and we're trying to do something else on stormwater or complete and green streets, we have that information. We can lay it on top of the property survey that we just did through building housing and look holistically at an issue as opposed to just looking at the tree itself. So we can look at layers and layers of planning and address those, and that's the other value of the tree inventory that you might not see when we just think about the tree by itself, but we can think about that. So I just wanted to explain the value of that tree inventory beyond just looking at the tree one by one. One other part of this grant is that they're on a yearly basis, they would get updated. So we would have up-to-date information digitally as well. And $2 million would go towards towards the trimming and removal of trees on this grant.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think the greatest emphasis should be is trying to keep down the cost of that consultant and to put the emphasis on just what you said, trimming, removal, and planning. I'm just telling you, that's what I hear from my citizens. You know, that's what I'm hearing. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So just for clarification on Councilman Polensik's point, you're trying to get this grant from the United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service, right?
To the chair, that is correct.
Okay, are they requiring that you do this inventory? Because that's what I thought I heard you say earlier.
So they are, sorry, go ahead. Best management practices. So in order to do what we want to do, which is to advance the trimming and tree removal, we need to follow best management practices, which do require an up-to-date inventory of our city right-of-way trees, and that's where the focus is. We also are required to do an urban management plan or forestry management plan. That is what we worked out with the Forestry Service. That is correct.
So before I turn this over to Councilwoman Spencer and Councilman McCormick, just to make sure that I'm clear, if you don't have that best practice or best management strategy in place, that could potentially jeopardize the grant?
To the chair, that is correct.
Yes. I do want to add.
So that's, it'd be important to help us understand when that happens, because Councilman Polensik is right. Most of us want to see tree trimming, want to see tree planting. And I do want to make sure I remind this body, and I know that Councilwoman Spencer knows this well, this body created a tree commission. This body put forth, I believe, 1 million and 1.7 million, if I'm not mistaken, in tree planting, stump grinding, and everything else. So once again, we've invested heavily in this department, and just want to make sure everybody understands that. Councilwoman Spencer, and then Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great discussion this afternoon so far on this, and I think we're almost there in terms of everyone understanding the proposed breakout of the 3.4 million. But I will have a chance to delve into this as Urban Forestry Commission, as a member of the Urban Forestry Commission. But I think just to make sure that I'm hearing this correctly and we're all hearing the same thing, I want to reaffirm through the chair to the administration that of the 3.4 million, 1 million is proposed to be used for an inventory and management plan. And if that's not correct, you will correct me. 2 million for maintenance of the urban forest, and then the remaining for the special project in the Opportunity Corridor. Is that correct, through the chair?
So through the chair to the council member, the 2 million includes the project on the Opportunity Corridor. There's $375,000 for subgrants, $125,000 each to Cleveland Metro Parks, Cuyahoga County, and Cleveland Tree Coalition subaward. Those are also focused on some planting and some mature maintenance.
And so through the chair, the 1 million is both for the inventory and the management plan, through the chair.
Yes, through the chair, the inventory and management plan expenses are in that $1 million. And that is also, there's a little bit each year to have updates to that plan. To the inventory, through the chair.
Okay. One question I would have is that through the chair, is that we've just launched the 311 system, the new 311 system. How would this inventory and management plan tie to 311? Has that already been preliminarily talked about, or is the intention that ultimately, do we think we could get better services by having geocoded tree locations? Through the chair.
Did you want to answer that?
I would, through the chair to the councilwoman, right now that has not been in discussions for us 311 in the connection with this management plan. But down the road, as this thing evolves, again, I think we're at a point where we're trying to get this thing up and running. To the councilman's point, there was a time when there was a we were a tree city for a reason. We had lots of arborists. We had but we're at a place now we've got to start over. And so this is part of our start. This is one of the things, if you will, the embers to get us going. That is something we definitely will entertain and want to do. But I will say this, it's almost a chicken and egg for us. I do understand where this body wants service. I totally get it. Being in park maintenance for a long time, I understand those needs. But we do have this sense of not really understanding what we have out there. And it's kind of hard to do your work well when you're not sure what you're working with. So at some point, we've got to, figure out how we can get our baseline together. And then we can start adding, we've got to get wheels on the car before we can get leather seats, if you will. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. And so I hear this body, we do want to try to find ways that we can provide as much service as we can. But I think at this point, we're just trying to get our baseline so we can get to that place.
Thank you. Chief Commissioner, did you want to respond to the councilwoman as well?
Just through the chair, the open data portal, I think, is also an opportunity for us to look at with urban analytics and urban innovation analytics. I'm sorry, Liz Crow. So I would like to figure out how we might partner with them in thinking about having that data available through the open data portal as well.
Thank you. I have an additional question through the chair, which is related to, I think this is a really important conversation that Councilman Polensek raised about how we've been funding urban forestry. It's so interesting, the historical information that Ms. Kipp was able to provide about staffing levels 11 years ago. Congratulations on your 11-year anniversary. And I think that's really illuminating, and that's why earlier this summer I was so delighted when you all, as colleagues, supported our amendment to create a standalone division of urban forestry, because that will, during this very next upcoming budget process, allow us to have that more detailed look at urban forestry as its own budget and its own staffing levels. Prior to that, we would have had to disaggregate that from parks maintenance and properties, which is challenging to do at the budget table. So I think Councilman Polenzic's inquiries were spot on. We really need to collectively understand, as a percentage of our overall general fund, what is the degree to which we are funding urban forestry. So I really look forward to, I think, standing up a new division is a challenge. It'll be a lot of work, but we will begin to have those discussions in our next budget cycle. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I just wanted to, I know that we still do have a lot of outstanding work orders, so I'm very pleased that there is $2 million of this $3.4 million that will go towards that work, that important work to stabilize the forests we have. But I also wanted to take a moment through the chair just to really compliment Ms. O'Keefe and Ms. Kipp and A.D. Laird, because this $3.4 million was, it sounds like we're on the cusp of getting the official word about it, but this was not a given. These are, this is the President Biden administration Inflation Reduction Act, and we are very fortunate that right now we have a presidential administration that, first of all, believes that climate change is a problem. Second of all, is allocating funding to address that, with urban forestry being one of the ways we need to go about that work. And so this is just continued diligence on behalf of on the part of the folks on the other side of this table to get this additional $3.4 million. This is a huge win. In all things being equal, we would not be having this conversation at all. So this is, I think, a tremendous amount of work and diligence and persistence went into getting us to this point. And I will also add, and you can correct me or Ms. Kipp can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the inventory and management plan are also called for in the Cleveland Tree Plan. So not only are they called for as an urban forestry best practice on the part of the funder in this case, but it was really specified in our Cleveland Tree Plan years ago now that this was something in which we were lacking. So I'll conclude with that. I don't know if there's any further comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair to the council member, yes, you're correct on the Cleveland Tree Plan as it being an action step. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have Councilman McCormick and then Councilman Conwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. And I appreciate our colleague, Jenny Spencer, for following on this through the commission as well. A couple quick things. I'll just note, man, I'm reminded of how important trees are when I'm walking my neighborhoods this summer, and the difference in temperature when I go on a street, a part of a street that has good canopy, and then I go 4 houses down and there aren't any trees, and you are reminded very quickly why these trees are so important, not only for the environment, but for our health, to ensure that we've got a good tree canopy. A couple quick questions. I fully support this ordinance. Chair, to the team here, I'm curious, Commissioner, on the soil component, are we working with streets and our contractors to ensure that when major road projects are done, they don't dump garbage soil in our right-of-way?
Through the chair to the council member, we have a lot of partnerships and collaboration with other departments, external and internal.
Okay.
To make sure that our tree lawn trees are not damaged or
But
left
Opportunity
in-
Corridor, Council President, to the team is a great example. The fact that why wasn't that done right the first time?
Right.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, I couldn't answer that only because of the way that project was structured. There was a lot of hands in it.
State of Ohio, too.
Yeah, there was a
Okay.
lot of hands involved in that.
Okay, and Chairman, to the group, I'm reminded of the West Shoreway project, same thing, a bunch of trees that died that were originally planted. There's a couple stragglers still on it. God bless them, but they're trying.
Yeah.
All right, well,
I would
go
say
ahead.
this there is a lot of work. We do a lot of work now with city planning, and we talk about a lot about maintenance. and about when new projects, streetscape projects come out, we actually come together to talk about what's the best way to do the maintenance and how should we do that. So we have been moving towards that way. Are we there completely? There's still a lot of work to do.
All right.
But we are having that.
Chair to the team, I just hope that we focus on that. I was with our urban forester like 5 years ago, and she was watching them pack the dirt down at Franklin Circle and looked at me and said, I hope we're not trying to plant trees there because they're not doing the right thing with the dirt. And we planted trees there. I think we've gone through 3 sets of them. Okay. My point is that as I've advocated for years, ensuring that urban forestry is at the table so that we don't have to do these redos. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
Glad we're thinking systemically about that. Chair to the commissioner, the database, will that include information such as, yes, 123 Main Street can take a tree? My words, I don't know what the forestry words are.
Through the chair to the councilman, yes. That's part of the 30,000 planting sites that we hope to identify.
So, and I'll just say on my part, I really appreciate this approach of the database because I agree, and this is no fault to the commissioner, but my entire time here, it has been, we haven't had this information. So it's been this tree, that, did we turn it in, did we not, was it taken care of? I don't know. We've tried to work with the commissioner, and she's been extremely helpful in Ward 3 to identify locations, which I know I owe you an email. And so, see, I own my stuff here when I owe somebody something too. But we've kind of done our own, just, putting sticks together project to try to get more trees. So I think it's going to be extremely helpful from a workflow perspective and to hopefully cut down on the time it takes to systemically trim and plant trees if we know where we got to do the work. I mean, to me, it's like walking in blind or walking in knowing where the work is ahead of you. And, if you walk in blind, it's going to be a much longer, much more inefficient process versus if we know what we're dealing with. So I really do appreciate that approach. And then my final question, Mr. Chairman, to the team is, I know historically one of the challenges we faced is residents denying a tree, for lack of a better term. Are we working to educate folks on, my question is, that policy has prevented a lot of tree growth in the city of Cleveland. And I understand the policy. I understand historically folks have had bad experiences, be it with utility lines or otherwise, totally legitimate. But the challenge is that if we don't start to plant in our least canopy covered areas, then we're going to get nowhere. So has the administration, Chief, I'll start with you, rethought that policy, and could it be accompanied with education to say, hey, we know you might have had a bad experience in the past, but here's why it's really important to have a tree?
Thanks for the opportunity through the chair to answer that question. So what I would say, I'll address it from the climate resiliency side of things, because what we've been doing is having community roundtables on the climate action plan update. And I'm bringing that up because in community roundtables, when we talk about urban heat and stormwater, people automatically drift towards trees. And they ought to talk about trees and how much they care about trees. So turning that back, we're going to have an education engagement ongoing, not just a one and done. Over the next couple of months, we'll go back to the community and talk about, here's what you said to us that you care about. And this is why trees are important. And these are the benefits that they can bring to you. This is not only through the community climate action plan update. When we say reducing climate emissions, it doesn't always land, right? What's really important is how it affects people every single day and how it affects their health and well-being. So that's how we're having those conversations. And I think that is the educational approach we need to take when we talk about trees in terms of climate resiliency.
I appreciate that. I think it's really important. I think you're spot on. Talking about the big picture stuff is going to keep your house cooler. It can save you on your utility bills. I mean, that's the stuff I think we need to talk with residents. And the last thing I'll say, Chair, and I'll yield, is also thinking through that policy on Fulton Road. A few years back, we lost a lot of trees, and I asked the commissioner, can you just plant the darn thing up? And she said, well, we were using some of my discretionary funding. So, okay. So we just planted the corridor without necessarily, we informed residents, but we didn't ask permission, so to say, all on public, green space, not on their property. And I'll just, Fulton Road, it's a very diverse corridor, residents of all different backgrounds. I would say 95% of those trees are still there. Some have been taken out by cars, unfortunately. But my point is that once they were planted, I think residents really saw the value in them. So I just appreciated that approach. We informed, but we didn't say, you know, would you not like this? I just said, because we need as many trees as we can get. I said, plant the darn corridor. We did, and it looks great. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Kevin Conwell.
Thank you very much. It's a good piece. I like it. I want to echo what Councilmember Mike Polensek said. We had tree farms. In some kind of way, we need to look at that, because then we can cultivate trees. If we need to plant trees, and you pull them out to do that anywhere in the city. And with these tree farms, I mean, I used to really like it, but back in '05, that administration, through the chair, sold the tree farms off. And if we can get that back again, that would be great, because you need it. You need it. For example, we're trying to do the canopy, but on the other end, your overlapping project, you have tree farms that we can grab trees and put them in disadvantaged areas. We really need the tree canopies on the east side of the city. It's more trees on the west side. And I'm not pitting the east side against the west side. I'm talking facts and with supporting evidence. And with even with Councilmember Kerry McCormick said, I can go into some areas on the east side where you have some trees, like East Boulevard, but then you go down Oldman or other places where there might not be any trees at all. That's not good. That's not good. It's almost like redlining with trees over there. And we need it to keep your homes cooler. You need that vegetation for the environment. We also, some kind of way we have to figure out through the chair, how do you get the trees but other vegetation also in those open space lots, in those side lots where the population is not coming back. But how do we bring vegetation there as well so we can have better air and clean air throughout the city? We have to be able to work with urban and farm agriculture side by side at the same time. Because we'll never get back to that. I'm thinking we'll never get there at 960,000 residents. But how do you fill these side lots and open space lots with not just trees, but with other vegetation through the chair to the Director of Forestry? And I forgot your name, but...
Jennifer.
And I'm sorry about that. Yes.
Through the chair to the councilman, so I just want want you to know that since 2017, when we do have tree planting in the city, when our funding allows for that, we have taken the equity approach. So we've used maps in the Cleveland Tree Plan that show where there is low canopy and low percentage, and we've targeted those neighborhoods and those areas since 2017. So talking about getting trees where they're needed most, we've taken that on since 2017. And to your point or question or idea about vegetation on vacant parcels, side lots, et cetera, I'd love to just get some, maybe invite our Director of Sustainability and her Nature-Based Solutions Manager, and just kind of have an offline conversation about what that would look like.
Yeah, to the chair, you should visit my community meetings. We meet every third Thursday to have this discussion with people. It never comes up because we're focused on other things, other quality of life issues. At my meeting through the chair, it never comes up, but I understand it. It's very, very important to have side-by-side tree canopies, as Councilwoman Janie Spencer was narrating, as well as vegetation in the communities. And so I invite you to that. Now, I'm going to vote for this because I understand, and I understand the way. But you got to teach the residents and you have to talk with them about the way also, how important this is. Therefore, I'm going to invite you to my community meetings so they understand the way with it. Let me shift gears real quick. I'm driving my neighborhood tomorrow. I still have a lot of trees that's down. The principal of FDR reached out to me last week. She was narrating, Councilman, how are we going to get rid of these trees that fell down at least 6 weeks ago? I'll be out there writing down my issues and concerns with the trees, and I'm going to give them to you because there's still a lot that's down there in my neighborhood. And I got to ride the neighborhood just to give it to you. And hopefully that you look at management, that you cut the trees as well as clean up the debris that's there that the trees have left.
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, we still have contractors going out and removing tree debris from tree lawns and vacant lots for all locations that are known locations. So like you're driving around in your ward, if you do see locations, please pass them along to me. I'll check our database and see if we already have that queued up for debris removal.
Yeah, I'm going to look at open space lots as well as side lots that the city owns, tree lawns, not where the private homes are at, but I'll look at those places that I know that we own and send it to you so it can be cleaned up. I'm going to help out, so I'm there. So that's my two-bit, Council President. But I am there on this piece of legislation. This is good. This is great. We need it. And I'm glad you have a map so we can have equity with the tree canopies. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Conwell. Just a couple of things. I think that's all the questions that we have. But I do just have a question, if I could, if you allow me. First of all, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 834-2024 as amended stands approved. Please sign on. But I do want to take one quick point of personal privilege. If there is a dispute between neighbors regarding a tree that is hanging over another neighbor's, it's in one neighbor's yard, but it is hanging branches and others are hanging over another neighbor's yard. Who inspects, cites, or deals with that issue? Is that building and housing or is that urban forestry?
To the chair, urban forestry does not assess trees on private property unless they are going to pose a risk to the right-of-way. So our primary concern is to maintain our public rights-of-way. And so if it's a tree in a backyard and the neighbor is also on private property, we do not intervene in those tree disputes.
So if a tree is threatening another property, whether it be a garage or a house, then who does cite it, or is it just nobody has any jurisdiction to do anything?
Well, if that's the case, that is a common call that our office receives. So we refer residents to the Department of Aging. They have a CTAPS program, which is tree assistance for seniors and or disabled residents, if they are able to assist there. And then per the law, they are permitted to prune things that are overhanging their property without, knowingly causing harm or damage to the tree.
So I know I've heard of aerial rights, and every property owner has aerial rights, but if the property owner adjacent to a property doesn't feel like they want to prune or don't have the means to do that, then that just means that the neighbor is just a civil matter and just got to take it up in courts.
As far as public works goes, we don't have any authority, anything like that. I don't know about building and housing, but I know that we don't have authority to do anything like that.
So civil matter, Councilman Polinsky, you seem like you know something about this.
Fortunately, anything that hangs over on your property, your car, your house, your fence, you can cut, as long as you do not kill the neighboring tree. But what I've advised residents to do is to notify the property owner next door in writing that the tree poses a hazard, because I've had all these cases over here where the tree has fallen on someone's car, someone's house, and their insurance company will take no responsibility because they were never notified. So I tell everyone, notify if the tree is hazardous, notify them, put it in writing, as I just did to a property owner whose large lot is affecting 2 streets in my ward. I notified a property owner who lives in Kent that your trees pose a hazard to the adjacent property owner. So if one of those babies come down, they can use it in a civil situation.
I'd like to see that letter.
Yeah,
Could you
okay.
forward that to me,
Yeah, I will.
Councilman?
I will.
Because
Yeah.
I'm running into that problem a lot more with city lots and private property that has the potential to damage the property adjacent to it. And everybody wants us to do something about it, and I've been struggling with how we deal with that. So, all right, thanks for the clarity. Seeing no other, Councilman Conwell?
Why is the city, through the chair, you're commissioner, right?
No, I'm the manager of urban forestry.
Okay, so I called your office, turn this mic on, before, about trees encroaching from city property to my residents' airspace. They encroach over there, it's called encroaching. And you guys won't come out to cut it. And then I had one incident on Lee where the city tree fell on this garage, and I told the lady to file a morals claim. City denied it. Lady talked about me all out the neighborhood like a dog. That's what they do with us. If you guys don't go and you don't cut and encroaches on other people's property, guess what? Through the chair, it's my fault. It's the other council members. We get the blame. Isn't that true? Yeah, we get the blame for it. So why do I got problems when I call your department, no one comes out to cut back when it goes into someone else's airspace? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilman, so as you know, we're responsible for trees on city-owned vacant lots and tree lawns.
Right.
So we will create a work order and have a tree serviced on a vacant lot if it's causing damage to a structure. So if there's adequate clearance from the airspace, to use your word, if there's adequate clearance, then we will not schedule the tree for service.
You know what? You can see the odds and the probability that it's going to grow, and your tree limbs will, let's say, encroach over to someone else's property and damage someone's roof on their home or their garage, and you see it coming, but you still would not cut back in that person's airspace. I don't understand that, to the chair. I just don't understand it. You see it's coming. You know the next year or two or a few months, the tree will be there damaging that person's roof.
Through the chair to the councilman, we do prioritize trees that are actively causing damage over trees that will at some point in the future potentially cause damage.
Yeah, but you see it's coming. You know it's going to damage the person's roof. Why don't you just cut it back? So we can do prevention. Prevention is the key.
So through the chair to the councilman, don't disagree, but I think going back to this grant, one of the reasons why we need to be able to have this grant, and I know your neighbors and you see this because this is locally where you're at.
Right.
When you're dealing with an entire city, you're trying to look at the large scope of things. What are the hazardous, 40-inch trees that are going to fall, versus, those kind of situations. So I think going back to this grant, being able to help us pinpoint these kind of things, be able to help us be more preventive and predictive as opposed to always on our heels trying to do something at the last minute. So we don't disagree with what you're saying. We want to try to get better, and this grant is going to be one of those tools to help us get better. But as we go along, we want to try to get better as we go. And so when we hear about those kind of things, we want to try to get on those faster. But this is one of the tools that we'll need to help us get there.
You know what I think, and I yield to the chair, I think it's a culture. Even if we give you this grant, you know you're not going to do it. And it's just a culture, and it's how your energy compels you to be. You're just not going to do it because you're used to not doing it. But if you change that culture and you start doing prevention, then it will help us out and it'll stop council members from getting blamed in the long run. And you don't have to hear through the chair. You guys, three up here, don't have to hear the phone calls. You're not getting beat up in the meetings, but we are. I'm serious, that's real talk. That's real talk, and I'm tired of it, man. Because I can see it. And you could do prevention on it. It will save us money. It will save money with morals claims, the whole 9 yards. You got to change that culture, and you have to have a culture more of executing. I'm serious. You don't have to look at him and wink or whatever the case may be. I'm serious about that. You got to change that culture, because you guys are not the ones that get beat up in your meetings. We are. We are. And I've been getting beat up by that since 2001. 2001. And Council President, he knows, I visited his meetings also. If you guys don't execute, he get the blame. And you know that, Council President. I talk with you about it. So you got, if you see the limbs and the trees encroaching, it's called encroaching, on another lot, and the odds and the probabilities, it's going to destroy this lady roof, cut it back. You already see, you know what? I'm going to say this, and I'll close. Time management. If you send the workers out there already, just get the job done. They're already out there.
Done if you need to go.
Why have to send them back again? You're blowing labor dollars also. And that's where I'm at, and I'll close.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Seeing no other questions? Yes, please.
I know we're ready to wrap up. I wanted to make a brief comment, speaking of, based on what Councilman Conwell is saying, speaking of culture change, I think it'll be tough for our residents, but I'm hopeful that this 311 launch will allow us to begin to teach our residents. If you call 311, you can get your own reference number. If you get a login for 311, you get your own tracking number. So that way, they're empowered. Then it doesn't come back on us. We told them what they need, the tool they need to report their issue so a work order can get created. So I think this is a really important discussion, but I think, I hope that 311 will help to shift that culture too. But I look forward, as an Urban Forestry Commission, I look forward to following up with you on the comments you've made as well. So thank you.
All right, and can we, because this is an offline conversation. Can we, if you guys need that, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, the Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee is adjourned till next call of the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Rollins leaves